I'm with David Collier, an anti-Semitism researcher from the UK. Now, David, the Archbishop of Canterbury has just recently visited Israel. Was that a good thing?
So was the actual visit or was the intention? I mean, look, it's wonderful when people come and visit Israel, because when people come and visit Israel, it gives them an opportunity to see the truth and to tell the truth. So in theory, I have to answer yes, her coming should have been a good thing.
And who did she actually meet on this trip?
Well, this is it. I mean, she spent 5 days. She was in Berzeit in Bethlehem in East Jerusalem. She also visited Nazareth, and for the most part, it does seem she was with other Christian leaders, religious figures. My issue is that she also met people who appear to be PFLP activists. Now, the PFLP, it's a prescribed terror group in the US, in the EU, in Canada. Um, and I mean, they did their classic plane hijackings is part of their history. They're still part of the violent resistance. They took part in the October the 7th atrocities. People who align with the PFLP align with violence. Now, she met a couple of people who she presented. One she named, the other she didn't, but I managed to track her down. And both of these girls, young women, have histories of PFLP affiliation. One of them, the second one, her father was in jail for 21 years as a PFLP terrorist who took bombs into Jerusalem. Why is the Archbishop meeting people like this?
Mm, mm. Yeah, another person that she met was Layan Nasser, and I've seen her picture on Facebook, and it's been presented. This Palestinian Christian has been arrested, and why has she been arrested? Who is she?
Well, again, she's somebody who was, firstly, there were only about 42,000 Palestinian Christians left, right, under PA areas. Like much of the Middle East and Africa, Christians are under intense pressure. Most of it driven by obviously the Islamist strangulation of their societies. So uh, the numbers are very small, and because Palestinians, it's a clan-based society, most people that are there who come from important clans or clans with a strong political history are known faces. It's not, you imagine people talking about massive societies of millions of people and randomly coming across somebody. Whoever put these people in the room with the Archbishop knew exactly who they were. The one you mentioned, um, her, I think it's her uncle or grandfather, was a leading member. He was a spokesperson for the PLO.
Mm.
These are clans that would have been known, and it also has to be remembered because of the terrorist groups and the way the the spectrum works, where we have Islamic Jihad and Hamas obviously on the Islamist side of things, and we have Fatah on the nationalist, more secular but also Muslim side of things. The PFLP famously was created by a Christian. And this allows like extremist Christian fundamentalists effectively an avenue to stand alongside the Islamist extremists. It's part of the network of resistance. Most Christians would have nothing to do with them. It's the activists who are out there standing alongside the violence who end up with the red Marxist PFLP banner. And that is who she met.
So this Leanne Nasser, she wasn't just an innocent person. Is she actually putting PFLP stuff on like a Facebook page, and is she
Well,
actively
look,
involved in it?
yes, she was actively involved in the student side of it. Absolutely, she's posted explicit support for both the student body that aligns with the PFLP and the PFLP itself. It's called in Arabic, they use the term Al Front, which is the People's Front, Al Front, and she calls it Al Front. She openly identifies with them, and yes, she has posted evidence of this on her Facebook page. It's
So
public.
Yeah, so when you see in the newspaper a Christian has been arrested and we don't know why, it's not quite the whole story. There's more to the background of this.
Look, my big issue here. I mean, firstly, look, let's not pretend for a minute that Christian Palestinians are not squeezed. There is a conflict going on. They're caught up in opposing nationalisms and a fight that's going on. They're standing alongside Islamist communities, whereas we can look obviously for the Christians within Israel and say, on the whole, relatively speaking, this is a protective society for Christians. The same is not true on the other side, and it's coming at them from both angles. I don't want to, for a minute, say that this is a complete, whitewash, but absolutely, when you turn around and say innocent Christians, you have to question why the Archbishop is aligning with pro-Palestinian propaganda, because that is what she's doing. She's taken something that has happened. The girl, or the young woman, she was arrested because she affiliates and she's an activist for a proscribed terrorist group. That is what happened. That is why she was arrested. And the Archbishop is saying this poor innocent persecuted Christian by the oppressive Israelis. It's a false narrative. It's not the truth at all. It's a false narrative, and it's really, really dangerous, not just for the Jews, but for the Christians, because Christians need to know the truth about what's happening. Christians need to know exactly what they're facing, what situation they're in. And we know across MENA, across the Middle East and North Africa, and especially today in parts of Africa and Asia, Christians are being oppressed and they're being murdered by Islamist extremists. And the same is happening to a degree in the PA areas. Last year, a young girl, a convert, was murdered by Islamist extremists. The pastor who who assisted with the conversion, receives death threats from the Islamist groups saying, "We got her, we can come for you." And it creates an environment where people are too scared to speak out. People are too scared to tell the truth because they are living next door to people that will come and kill them. So the only voices that Christians in the West are getting to hear are those that are comfortable standing with the Islamists, they're a minority, they're active, and they support violent resistance. These are not the voices Christians should be listening to, because they do not represent peace, they do not represent the Palestinians, they do not represent the Christian Palestinians, and they're not helping anybody. So to sit back and watch the head of the Anglican, the Archbishop of Canterbury basically align herself with factional extremist voices and pretend that these are the poor oppressed voices of peace we should be listening to is a very dangerous message to send, because it misinforms and it misleads the very populations, including her own, that she is meant to be serving.
Does this encourage anti-Semitism, do you think?
Well, and look, anything that promotes, because the way I see it, the Palestinian cause as such, and I separate here the Palestinian people from the Palestinian cause. The Palestinian cause as such is an anti-Semitic cause. It is effectively replacement ideology. This is what it is. And certainly this is why from some Christian communities, it builds into their supersessionist positions. It works for them. So the Palestinians don't want to decide by the Palestinian cause. Again, when I'm talking about the Palestinians, I'm talking about their leadership. The leaders are chosen, and the movement as it's represented in the West, from the river to the sea, has no interest in living side by side with Israel. It is a replacement ideology that seeks to replace Israel. And then it becomes, what happens to the Israelis that are living there. And one thing that I want to stress here, because it's really important, they talk about peace and justice, right? They never talk about peace. They always link the word justice. Now, to a Western ear, it sounds quite pleasant because we understand justice. We have a legal system. And we have our ideologies now. You're Christian or you're Jewish faith, and we understand the way that justice works normally hand in hand with peace. But that doesn't necessarily mean that justice means the same thing to the people of the camps who align with Islam. And in those terms, justice can actually mean revenge.
Mm, mm.
And
So,
and it, go on.
yeah, with her visiting here, did she actually visit anything to do with Israel? Did she visit the Israeli Christian community, the Messianic
She
churches?
did. She did. Well, she went up. From what I understand, she did go to Nazareth, which is obviously it's an Israeli town with a large Christian minority there. Um, um, but she doesn't really mention the word Israel anywhere. And her messaging was all about we have to stand in solidarity with the Palestinians. We have to stand with the oppressed. It falls down to this basic mistake that the West has made, where they only see things through oppressed and oppressor. And the oppressed is normally the non-white person, and the oppressor is almost invariably white. This is the way that things are mentioned, and this is the way it's a very basic, binary, misleading situation to be in. But when you look at her messages, she doesn't mention Israel. She doesn't speak for the Israelis. She doesn't talk about needing to stand in solidarity with those of October the 7th and the victims there. She didn't meet any of those. And here's the really sickening part about all this. Just before she flew to Israel, she went to the Nova exhibition here, which is an exhibition we have here in London that was set up. It's only temporary. It's about 6 weeks here. It's an exhibition of the Nova, what happened at the Nova on October the 7th. It's a devastating exhibition. It's got several things to it, but you walk through, you see footage, you see the aftermath, you hear from survivors, you can meet families of survivors or family of victims while she was there. And she did. And she said it was heartbreaking and all of this. This she did days before she got on a plane. She goes on a plane and she stands alongside PFLP activists when the PFLP were actually involved in the October the 7th atrocities. How does she live with herself?
Yeah, it's shocking. And she could have actually gone down to the Gaza border communities and seen the Nova Festival site for herself, where many people were kidnapped and murdered at that place.
Look, she could. It's the Archbishop of Canterbury. She basically got a key to wherever she wants to go. She could have, I mean, where she goes is where she's chosen to go. She could have gone there. She could have at least made that pilgrimage to say, okay, I have to go there as well to see the reality of what they did, because it's being there, and I've been now to the Nova site twice myself. It is absolutely devastating. She could have done any of it. She chose not to. She chose to take the very, uh, you know, progressive, modern, Anglican, which we're seeing more and more, this narrative that's coming out that's almost anti-Israel. You start seeing the BDS things turning up in some churches, which is an absolute disgrace. It really is. To see this kind of narrative coming out from the Archbishop. She's only been in her position now a year, I think, and she could have done so much good. And to see her just come out and do harm, it's tragic. It's tragic for all of us. It's not just a Jewish thing. This is tragic for all of us.
How was her predecessor, Justin Welby, in the Israel on the subject of Israel?
He did visit. He visited a few times. I was looking actually when I was doing the piece that I just wrote. I was looking at him. I don't want to get into it as if I don't want to pretend that I understand exactly what he did or where he went or when he went. But I did notice that he did speak out against Islamist oppression in the Middle East. So I did. So he was aware of that as well. And I think it's very, very important not to look at what's happening to the Christians in isolation in the PA areas, because then you can get misled into thinking that this is all about the Israeli conflict. It isn't. This is also about the Islamist suffocation of the Christian communities in the Middle East.
Now, the Bible talks about in the book of Genesis, I will give you this land as an eternal covenant. And many Christians agree with that and believe that and would call themselves Zionists. But now that seems to be a bit of a dirty word. Now, a Zionist is it's sort of, you can be anti-Zionist, but you can't be anti-Semitic. Do you think that the Anglican Church and the Archbishop of Canterbury has gone down replacement theology, saying the church has now replaced Israel, because this is a big problem in the church today.
Well, yeah, this is it. This is why I was talking about supersessionism. Yes, I mean, I think it makes it a lot easier for them. Firstly, I totally oppose the idea that anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism are different things. I think what's happened, anti-Zionism was a historical reality. As part of the discussion that took place within the Jewish community prior to the creation and establishment of the State of Israel. There was a legitimate anti-Zionist discussion. Sadly, in Europe in the 1940s, we saw that the opposition to Zionism was effectively wrong. Bundists who thought they were okay where they were in Poland and so on and so forth. And then, of course, we had the North African and Arab Jews kicked out of Israel became a refuge for Jews from everywhere. So that was Zionism, anti-Zionism. Today, what's anti-Zionism? Israelism it's a state that exists with 10 million civilian citizens in it. What do you mean I oppose its existence? Of course, it's anti-Semitic. To the core, nobody opposes the existence of Russia or America or any nation, only Israel. And I've actually stopped using a hyphen because I don't think it makes any sense. Anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, and the church has sadly, some of it, swallowed these anti-Zionist narratives because it helps facilitate an anti-Semitism that they have carried for thousands of years. It works together well. And yes, it is replacement ideology, not exclusively, but this idea that the Christians have replaced the Jews as the chosen people. The New Testament has replaced the Old Testament as the Testament. These kind of things that play into it, it all helps. Anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. Anyone that disagrees with this, just having a discussion over planting a seed is not the same as chopping down a tree. It's that simple.
How do you think Christians should respond today to this, to what the Archbishop of Canterbury has done? Should they be contacting her? How should they respond?
They need to protest, and they need to get her. She's relatively new, and I would hope that it was naivety and innocence and a lack of understanding, because I don't believe her own people knew exactly who she was meeting. I do believe that the people on the other side who put her in the room with them knew exactly who they were. And I think there's this disconnect between the church here and the reality on the ground over there. So I do think that there was a naivety and innocence involved. What we need to do is we need to make sure it never happens again. We need her to open her eyes to the reality of the Christian life over there. And it means not just listening to the pro-Palestinian activists. It means trying to reach out to the Christians who are too scared to speak, because they're the ones who really desperately need the Archbishop's help, and they need her voice.
Now, you wrote an article all about this. Where can people get a hold of the article, and where can they hear more about anti-Semitism in the UK?
Well, my website is it's like a portal. You go to my website. It's simply my name with a hyphen in the middle. It's david-collier.com, Collier, david-collier.com. The article is there, and there's plenty on anti-Semitism there.
Well, David, thank you very much for sharing today.
Pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.